I love sales, and I think that for many people that is a 4-letter word. Especially a lot of business owners feel that way. They feel like selling, they kind of have to, but they don't love it. And they got into the business because there was a skill they had, or an invention they had, or a service they wanted to provide. And selling is something they have to do too. For nonprofits, I think people tend to under promote because they just definitely don't want to be associated with salespeople and be seen as too pushy and intrusive. And what happens is we overcorrect. In an attempt to not be that kind of person, we under promote. And we overcorrect our behavior, and then people don't understand, and they don't know what we do, and they can't come alongside us, right? So everyone's qualifying questions look different.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, you can write this down, the 3 you'll always have are, does this person understand their own decision-making process internally? If they cannot tell you how they're going to make a decision, then they are not the decider.
Do you ask them that kind of thing?
Okay. So you do it real casually. You don't want to do it in an accusing way, right? But you would say, great, it's been so super to talk with you. Now, just so I understand, so we outline our next steps. Could you tell me how decisions like this are made? Use the passive voice. How are decisions like this made? And what happens next? And then, because you're thinking, I'm talking to the director of so-and-so, they must be right. And they go, oh, great. So next, I'm going to bring in so-and-so, and you're going to have to present to the whole committee, and you're going to have to blah, 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 blah. And you go, okay. And so now what have you learned? This person influences, but they're not the buyer. I don't know nearly enough people in this organization. In your example, it might be the mom makes all the decisions. For some reason, they sent the babysitter, or for some reason, they sent the dad, or mom won't do anything over $3,000 without consulting dad. I mean, you just have to ask those questions to find out what the answer is. So it's always about how is the decision made? Do they have money? That's tricky to find that out, right? But is this something that is in your current budget? Has this been preset as a priority for you? Don, that might be, how are you on your projected advertised spend for the year? It has to be somewhat innocuous so they don't feel threatened. They won't tell you their bottom line, but they will tell you if they've used up this year's dollars and they're collecting data for next year, which would affect how you will decide how much time you give them right now, right? So it's always worth asking, even though they may not be precise in their answer. So the decision process, do they have money, and what are they doing now? How are they solving this problem now? Is huge, because then you find out if they think the status quo in their current state, which is essentially your competition, right? What am I doing now? Is that good enough for them? That's when they'll tell you if they're shopping around. That's when they'll tell you that there was an incumbent they were working with and you actually have a chance to upseat them. But if you don't ask, they won't tell you. And I am a really big believer in every circumstance that I can having what I call a discovery meeting. Okay, so I think this is really relevant to nonprofits. This may be, I don't know, David, if it could be, a phone call with a referral. I don't know what it would look like in your industry. You have to think about that. But for most of us, it's having a phone appointment. I would recommend phone, or if you're selling outside of the city, doing a Google Hangout or Skype or video thing. But this is not going in person. This is trying to do early qualifying real quick, where you're deciding if you're going to talk more and if you're going to keep agreeing to go move through the sales process. You're trying to ask for small commitment first. It's kind of the foot in the door. But I don't like the expression foot in the door because that's been used to be coercive, and we're not being coercive, we're being extremely direct about our intentions. Okay, so let's just walk through this together. I believe that having voicemail and email templates that you can reuse to speed up your work is super important. This is part of the sales tools pillar. And so this is what I call the anatomy of a template. This is asking for a discovery conversation. Okay, be it a donor, be it a potential partner, be it a client, be it a potential finder fee referrer, could be any number of things. First, you're going to introduce yourself. So do that with your own words. I just say hi, and I typically use first names. Unless someone is a medical doctor or their title is very important to them, I usually just use first names. I think it's particularly important when I'm selling to men that we use first names. Because there's
first and last, or just first?
I just use first. Okay. But again, I'd leave that up to you. Then again, this is some version of this is an email, or some version of this is a voicemail you're leaving. Okay, so just think about what would be most appropriate in your setting. This is you reaching out to someone who does not know you, or it's been a very barely warm referral. They mostly don't know you. So you're saying, hi, I'm so-and-so, and you kind of just would give your name and your role, role in the company or name of your company. So the body of the email then is answering the question, who are you? Okay, and your purpose. So I just say, I am calling, or I am emailing, or I am reaching out to you because my company does X, and I want to connect with you. So that's combining, step B and C here. Why are you reaching out to them? I want to connect with you because I think X. So Bruce, I don't know, maybe, we've been particularly successful in building facilities that have to do with medical stuff, or you're probably familiar with our work with Arts for Hearing and Orthodontic Arts. Is that what it is? Mm-hmm. Okay. You want it to be personal. The point I want you to get here is that two things. Does what you're describing pass the 80-year-old grandma test? Okay, what that means is if you tell my 80-year-old grandma what you do for a living, do they understand? Okay, it's pretty straightforward with orthodontics, pretty straightforward with architecture. Gets less clear for the rest of us, right? So in some settings, I just say I'm a sales trainer because I don't want to hear all about my calling projects and all my other stuff. It's just too hard to understand. If you say I train people to sell, my 80-year-old grandma would go, well, I don't really know how you do that, but okay. I can tell my friends that. It's got to be really simple. So that's a tricky thing, right? That's trickier for Julie. And then it needs to be very personal. Okay, nobody wants to feel like they're just on your marketing list. So it needs to be, I heard you have a project and we are great at medical. I know your cousins with so-and-so is very happy with your work. You've got to somehow make it be personal that gets their attention, that says, this is why I'm soliciting you. Because you're basically soliciting them. So you're just being real truthful, but highly personal. Okay? So that's B and C. And then what is your ask? I am wondering if you would like to schedule a 20-minute phone call to discuss fill in the blank. Okay, I strongly recommend this not be in person. I just did a Facebook Live about this. People face-to-face is superior. I can see your body language. I understand it's a superior form of communication. It is a colossal time waster if people are unqualified. You do not have time. Your salespeople do not have time. In Google Calendars, I schedule it for 30 minutes. And I tell them in the email, I say, in 20 minutes, we can usually decide if it makes sense to talk again. Point E here, it is critical that you state how and when you can be reached. Because you want to make it as easy as possible for them to open up their calendar and say, you know what, I think I would be willing to give them 15 minutes on the phone to talk about this subject. They say they're available Thursday between 10 and 2. I'm just going to go ahead and take that time. So you need to say, I am available at blah, blah, blah time. You need to list it out, literally give a few choices. And then the real zinger, because this is about mutual accountability, is you need to say, if I don't hear from you by X time, this is my next action. Okay, and a lot of people, it makes them uncomfortable because it makes them feel like, oh, this is when I'm starting to chase you, but I'm going to tell you, right? So think about when people solicit you, how hard do they have to try to get an audience with you? I do not talk on the phone for even 15 minutes with people if they don't try.